Senator Hume.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. I rise today to address a deeply troubling challenge facing my home state of Victoria, and that is energy affordability and security. All of us in this place know of the recent closure of the Hazelwood Power Station in the Latrobe Valley and the loss of 800 jobs from the local economy and the devastation that has inflicted on the Latrobe Valley community. Last year, in 2016, the Andrews Labor government increased the minerals royalty charge by 300%. 300%, that's an extraordinary number, dismissing the concerns, completely disregarding the concerns that this would reduce the viability of energy companies in Victoria, and dismissing the concerns that it would cause significant increases in the cost of power in our state. Unfortunately, the results, however, have been very clear. Hazelwood workers are now out of a job, and Victorians are facing increases of up to $300 a year on their energy bills. Now, Hazelwood supplied up to a quarter of Victoria's energy, but its closure makes our state reliant on others instead of being energy self-sufficient. And for a state with the energy resources of Victoria, that is entirely unacceptable. This reliance puts our state in a very dangerous position. If observing Australia's energy market over the last year has taught us anything at all, it's that depending on other states for power can leave the lights off and can bring business to a grinding halt. Recent experience in South Australia shows us that states must be able to stand on their own 2 feet and to supply local power for their people and for their businesses. I ask you, Mr Acting Deputy President, how can a state prosper? How can a state prosper when it fails to provide reliable power at an affordable price to its citizens? The answer is it simply cannot. It is impossible. South Australia has unfortunately demonstrated the consequences of high energy costs and creating an environment that is entirely hostile to investment. It's entirely hostile to business growth, and of course it is ultimately entirely hostile to employment and to employment opportunities. South Australia has the highest unemployment rate in the nation, and with Ariam's Whyalla Steelworks the most notable example of those job losses. The Wetherill Labor government, the Wetherill government's decision to provide unjustifiably high subsidies to wind and to solar to those suppliers has triggered blackouts and a spike in energy costs that has almost brought the entire state to its knees. It is something we have spoken about in this chamber. It is something that is spoken about repeatedly in the media. Now, Mr Acting Deputy President, while South Australia's energy security and economic woes are a sad corollary of South Australia's ideological approach to energy production, my primary concern, of course, is for the state to which I was elected to represent. And I hold grave fears for Victoria's energy security under an Andrews Labor government. The Andrews Labor government has put Victoria on the same path as South Australia. And if the Andrews government 40% renewable energy target is a threat to affordable and secure energy in Victoria, then my greatest concern is that Mr Shorten's Labor opposition and their 50% renewable energy target represents an even worse threat across our nation. Indeed, Mr Acting Deputy President, Mr Shorten wants Australia to source 50% of its energies from renewables by 2030. The exact same goals as Premier Joe Wetherill and his ill-fated state of South Australia. One would think that the malaise, the lingering around South Australia and the South Australian economy is evidence that the extreme renewable energy targets cannot sit alongside the goals of job creation, the goals of improving living standards, and that Australians expect and deserve. Certainly, Victorians expect and deserve better. Mr. Acting Deputy President, at their heart, extreme renewable energy targets represent an ideological approach to energy that places emission reduction ahead of energy security. And energy security is our priority. As it currently stands, renewable energy sources are unable to provide a consistent and a secure base load power to supply the national grid. And instead, renewables like wind and solar, they supply intermittent power which unfortunately comes with drawbacks. The drawbacks are, put simply, when the wind ain't blowing and the sun ain't shining, power is simply not being generated. The Coalition Government is acutely aware of these issues and has made a decisive move to improve Australia's long-neglected energy storage capacity. And this, I believe, is particularly exciting. The Prime Minister has requested ARENA and also the Clean Energy Finance Corporation to work together on a new round of funding for large-scale storage, for large-scale energy storage solutions. And this storage will improve the stability and the reliability of variable renewables. But renewables alone will not fulfil our goal of stable and security energy supply. As old high-emission power stations are retired, we will need to consider more baseload power to fill that void. To fill the void and capable of supplying power day in and day out. As the world's largest coal exporter, we have a vested interest in showing that we can provide both lower emissions and reliable baseload power with state-of-the-art clean coal-fired technology using both combustion efficiency and pollution control. It is possible. Indeed, Mr. Acting Deputy President, our approach to emission reduction should be technology agnostic. The maximum efficient reduction for the least amount of economic damage. I'm going to say that again, the maximum emission reduction for the least amount of economic damage to families and to businesses. We should employ our vast supplies of coal in cutting-edge facilities that will allow us to use our natural competitive advantage in power production to deliver low-cost energy to Australian homes and to businesses. Our commitment to the federal renewable energy target remains unwavering. Let me make that clear. Our commitment to the federal renewable energy target remains unwavering, but this government is determined to achieve our target without the devastating impact that a 50% renewable energy target under Labor, sadly demonstrated in South Australia, would have upon Australian businesses. Mr. Acting Deputy President, the Turnbull government, the Turnbull Coalition government, is approaching emissions reductions and energy security in a clear-eyed and far more pragmatic way. We're not at all shackled to certain technological methods, unlike those opposite, but rather we're determined to make sure that we choose the most practical, the efficient path towards emission reduction. This government is determined that Australia should be able to achieve the policy trifecta of energy that is affordable, that is reliable and that is secure. Labor's approach is driven simply by ideology and heedless of the costs of thousands of Australian jobs that it will destroy. I am determined that my state will not follow in the same path as South Australia.
Thank you, Senator